Alright, this trailer is more or less 6 feet wide. So it's actually averaging out just a touch over. I've got a bunch of 2x6s and 2x8s that are treated that I've gathered up from different things. Some of it, like these 2x8s, were purchased to do the bucks and the window openings and door openings in the house. So I'm gonna start cutting this stuff up and trying to fit it in. I went ahead and drilled the holes for all of the wiring and ran the wires for the lights without the deck on, because it's a lot easier than laying on my back and doing it. So I'm gonna cut this down and start trying to fit these in. I'm gonna have to mix it, so I'm gonna have to do a little math and figure out if I've got enough lumber, and then start cutting this stuff and putting it in.
Is that what it is?
I believe there may be some excrement involved as well. Number one. This thing is not consistently the same width at all. Probably gonna have to measure each one.
You want me to stand over there?
Like that. I feel so much safer with that on there.
I was asking if you wanted me to stand on that end, but you're already in the...
Alright. Need the whammer. I need to tape, I just need the hammer.
I thought you were going to have to measure each one.
Nope. Well, I gotta get this one in and that one in and see the difference in between, because I don't have enough 2x8s to do the whole trailer, so I'm gonna have to do 2x6s. So, you know, blah blah blah. Since it stopped raining and our framers that are working on the house are not here right now, I got time to get back to this trailer. So what I'm going to do is add cleats to the floor on this thing to give the cattle something for their feet to kind of rest against, so they're not slipping and sliding all over the place when we're hauling them around. What I'm using is ground contact 2x material, where we ripped 2x12s to fit the window and door openings on the house. So I've got material left over. It's all nominally 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch thick. So I'm going to cut it down and stagger these cleats on the floor of this thing in a pattern that's going with the boards in the floor, but also 90 degrees to it. You'll see how it's going to work out. I kind of got the idea from there's a cattle trailer flooring manufacturer that makes something like this out of rubber, but this is obviously not going to cost near as much because it's basically scrap. The wood in the floor now is stuff left over from framing the house, and these cutoffs are just cutoffs. So I'm going to start trying to figure this out and make it work. All right, I think I figured out a spacing that's going to work on this. I didn't think you wanted to watch me doing a puzzle. So I'm going to start gluing and screwing these things down. And hope that the cows don't tear it up too fast. Now the screws I'm using are stainless steel 1 5/8" exterior screws, because I don't want them to rust out and then this stuff break off. And I'm going to use Tight Bond 2 interior exterior grade glue to glue this stuff down and hope it sticks. Well, looks like that part's done. Now it's time to work on the lights and the brakes. See if we can get that stuff functioning. The first step in repairing the lights and wiring on this thing is get into this and see if the electric brakes are even functional. You know, the wiring on it's all jacked up, so who knows if they worked when my father-in-law bought this thing or not. The plug end of the wiring was all torn up, and when I connected it to my truck to bring it out here, it gave me an error message that the brakes were not working. So I don't know if it's just a bad ground or if the brakes themselves are shot. But only one axle has brakes on it. That's the back one. Does have a lot of spiders living in it though. you find yourself in need of some heavier duty rubber gloves, well, let me grab the box. I'm not sure about the name of these, given what rubber gloves are used for in the medical profession, but it's called, my box is falling apart. Semper Force from Harbor Freight, and these are what are they? I think they're 9mm. Well, it doesn't say. But anyway, they're a black nitrile. They call it an examination glove. And it's helping support the Prostate Cancer Foundation. Going back to the name, Always Force. Not sure about that, but these are good gloves. They hold up pretty well. Drum's not in bad shape. It's not grooved up. The shoes look pretty good. Well, that couldn't be part of the problem right there. Somebody put this brake system together using Scotch locks, which are pieces of crap. Okay, if you don't know what Scotch locks are, It's these little plastic pieces of garbage with the metal thing in it that you close down, and it supposedly makes contact with the wire. They're not weatherproof. They were originally marketed, I don't know if they were created by U-Haul for doing temporary trailer connections when you go rent a trailer. And for temporary and emergency, sure, but these things are garbage. They're not weatherproof. They don't last. The connection corrodes up. They're not a permanent repair solution for anything, unless your permanent solution is to not have electrical stuff that works. Alright, well, that magnet's still good, so it's clearly a wiring issue, which I can see with the dang Scotch locks attached to everything. The way that electric trailer brakes works on the same principle as an old style drum brake, except instead of having a hydraulic cylinder in here, your brake cylinder that expands and pushes the shoes against the inside of the drum, in here it has a magnet that becomes energized when you put your foot on the brake, and the brake controller sends juice to it. You can adjust your brake controller so it makes this electromagnet. You can adjust your brake controller so it makes this electromagnet stronger or weaker. So the heavier your load, you want a stronger magnetic force that pulls this magnet against the inside of the drum on this surface. And as the wheel is turning in a forward direction and you hit the brakes, it wants to spin this around in a counterclockwise fashion, and this arm actuates a cam up here and spreads your brake shoes to engage the drum. And so for this thing to work, you've got to have good components, but you have to have a good solid ground, and you have to have a good power source coming to it. So if your wiring's bad or if your plug's bad, then your brakes aren't going to work. Usually when one of these systems, if all of the components are good, when one of these systems isn't working, it's usually a bad ground. A lot of trailers will try to use the ball to connect to the ground side on the vehicle. Most 7-pin connections have a dedicated ground that goes to the towing vehicle's ground side of their electrical system. So what I'm working on here is trying to fix the wiring that comes out of the back of this thing. There's two little stub wires here that power that electromagnet. One side is ground, one side is power, and then there's a set of wires that go to the other side to do the same thing. And then you just run your one power wire to the plug at the front. So hopefully that was useful. Okay. Well, I thought I was going to be able to use these strippers and strip the wire in the middle and then put the two together, put shrink wrap over it. But that is not going to work because the wire is all torn up from those stupid Scotch locks, so I'm going to have to cut it and then use a crimp connector to put the wire together and then put the shrink tube over it to lock everything together. The backing plate on this thing is so rusty that I can't easily sand the rust off of there, so I'm going to use a Dremel with a stainless steel wire brush. See if I can get it off of there that way, because if we can't get a good ground, these brakes are never going to work. I believe I have fixed the ground problem by running a dedicated ground wire back to where the light grounds on the light mount. The problem with using the nut on the backing plate is that everything on this thing is so rusty that there's not a ground happening in all of this suspension system because it's just too rusty. So hopefully this is going to fix the problem and allow us to finish wiring these dang brakes up. Working on old rusty crap is a royal pain. Not to mention the fact that you're coming behind Jim Bob the redneck that has put all of this stuff together with baling wire and, if you're lucky, duct tape. Alright, I got the wiring done on this thing. You couldn't really see much, so I just left the camera off. And I went ahead and adjusted the brake. Since I can't find my brake adjusting tools, I just reached inside with the drum off and used a pair of channel locks to screw that adjuster out. And you want it so it's just barely rubbing on the brake shoes, but not binding up. You should just hear it, not really feel it. Rubbing against the inside of the drum. Now when you put these bearings back in, put them in the right order. Come on, stupid. You need to put the bearing in before the washer. I'm hot and tired and ready to be done with this mess. All right. Put your bearing in. Put your washer in. Put your nut on. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but the brake's just barely touching, and that's where you want it. If it's too loose, your brakes aren't going to work very good. If it's too tight, you know, it's going to drag and eat up the friction material on the shoe. But if it's dragging bad enough, it'll get hot and cause fire. So that's pretty good. You know, when I took the wheel off, I moved this and there was some slop in there. You don't want it that loose, but you don't want it overly tight, because if it's overly tight, then you've got too much preload on your bearings and you'll eat your bearings up. All right, so let's see if we can find All right, now that everything is adjusted and the wires are fixed, I'll show you how this thing is supposed to work. So you're driving down the road, your tire's spinning, and you hit the brake, which sets off your brake controller. And the magnet engages the drum, which spreads the shoes, and your brakes work. So now to see if the other side is working. Knowing full well it's not gonna be, because it's either gonna be out of adjustment and or the wiring is jacked up. Okay, let's get this spinning so it'll spin long enough for me to go to the other side and turn the power on. I'll be. It actually works. So now I need to wire up the lights. Okay, if you buy one of these trailer light kits, doesn't matter where you buy them, Walmart, Harbor Freight, get them off the internet, Amazon, whatever. They're kind of hard to screw up. The wires are going to be different colors for each side, because your stoplight and your turn signal are the same circuit. And on this set, yellow is the left, green is the right, and then brown is on both sides. That is your marker lights. And then on this set, white is your ground. And the lights ground to the trailer itself, and then there's a short ground wire up at the front that you ground somewhere on the tongue. I'm hoping that when I get to that stage it works, because otherwise I'm gonna have to go buy some wire and run a ground for both sets of lights all the way to the back. It should work, but who knows. All right, folks, this thing's finally done. Jesus. It was hot today, and I was doing my least favorite thing to do with vehicles and equipment, which is electrical work. Other than explaining the brakes, I know I didn't really show you the electrical stuff. It's kind of hard laying on your back underneath the trailer or truck or something to show you that, but the lights work, so, and the brakes work, so it's a definite improvement. I'm hoping that this cleated floor works out a lot better than what most people commonly do, which is put cattle panel down. We've had a problem with the cattle panel getting bent and stuff like that, so we'll see. But maybe you got some useful information out of it, at least figured out you don't want to do stuff that way. But thanks for watching, and y'all have a good day.